I think with the release of Monster Hunter Wilds, Capcom set out to answer the bold question of how fucked up can we make our game in every other aspect besides combat before the combat can no longer carry the rest of it. And as the answer would turn out to be, pretty fucked up. Like, very, very, very fucked up. This game is best described as the most fucked up 8 out of 10 game you will ever play, especially on PC. In this video recording alone, you will see that right there it is right now. I'm watching the video as I'm recording this. You just see some textures exploding on screen. Yeah, that's just a thing that the game does apparently on NVIDIA GPUs. If you watch NerdCubed played this game. If you watch NerdCubed play this game, he's just a random YouTuber. In his video, and you could tell he has a great rig. He's a YouTuber, so I'm sure he has like a 3090 or whatever the fuck. In his video, he's in this area, and in the start of the game, there's like mud, and the mud like glitches out and renders just like a giant brick, and the whole world just starts like falling apart at the seams. Textures are stretching all over the place. Shit is just going completely wrong. And that's just a thing that happens apparently on NVIDIA GPUs. Doesn't matter if you're on Windows or Linux. I'm on Linux. I assumed that it was a Linux issue at first, but apparently it's not. It's just a NVIDIA GPU issue. I don't know if NVIDIA has to fix it or if Capcom has to fix it or if both have to fix it. I don't know. But yeah, so sorry about that in this video. There will be like textures just randomly flickering on screen. I don't know if there's a way to even fix that. I think it's just the game being the game. I don't know. Another thing is, I'm about to graduate college in about 2 months, or I should, hopefully, with a bachelor's degree in computer science. But honestly, after playing this game, I'm considering fucking going back, because maybe if I get my PhD, I will finally understand the goddamn multiplayer system in this game. Because it's like, oh, you need to be in a lobby, and then you need to be in a link party, and then you need to be in a quest group or something. It's so fucking bad. It's such a step down from Rise. Even World was better than this, I think. I guess because the lobbies are bigger, they had to like do. I don't know. It's weird. I don't understand why it can't just be like, oh, you're in like a lobby, and then it's just like this is just how it is or whatever. I don't know why it has to be like this like thing of like, oh, we're doing you have to be in a link party, you have to be in that or whatever. Like, I don't understand why it has to be like that, but for some reason that is like how they have decided to set it up. I don't know why, but for some reason this is how the multiplayer works in this game. Oh, another thing too with this game, Dynasty Warriors Origins just came out, and that is by Koei Tecmo, and it is really sad, Capcom, because this is a Koei Tecmo game right here. I'm going to splice in a screenshot of Three Houses, the famous fruit stand screenshot. This is a Koei Tecmo game. Capcom, this is a Koei Tecmo game. Capcom, you are getting beaten by these people. They made this. Do you see this, Capcom? That is a Koei Tecmo game. This is what Dynasty Warriors Origins looks like. Dynasty Warriors Origins, especially if you compare it to their previous Dynasty Warriors games, actually looks better than the other games. It runs worse, but it does actually look better than the other games. So the extra spec requirements actually makes a lot of sense because, yes, it runs worse, but it actually performs or visually is better. You know what I mean? Wilds does not look better than World right now. It looks worse than World. A lot worse than World. I think there's a bug right now where textures just don't decompile or don't decompress properly, so they just don't render right. For me, if I have my game on lowest texture settings versus maximum, it doesn't actually change anything. The textures look exactly the same. Of course, I also have DLSS on performance because I'm on medium settings, and that's how medium settings is. They're set up so that DLSS is on performance. That's fucking medium, according to Capcom. Absolutely insanity. Okay, I'm on 1080p with a 20. Okay, here's my specs. I'm on a 2060, 16 gigs. So it's an old GPU, 16 gigs of RAM, 5800X Ryzen 5 or 7. Sorry. I'm not expecting to run this game at ultra settings. I don't expect to run any games at ultra settings with my GPU. I get it, but I do expect to usually run them at native 1080p. Not like 500p upscaled to 1080p with FSR or DLSS. Oh, and also DLSS is broken in this game for me. It crashes my game, so I have to use FSR, and also DLSS doesn't allow frame gen, and without frame gen, this game is pretty much unplayable. Frame gen introduces a ton of frame input delay, or input delay, but fortunately, playing on controller, it's not really super noticeable. I think playing on like a mouse and keyboard, it's more noticeable. Like on, I played on Marvel Rivals, and turning on that game with frame gen is unbearably bad because mouse and keyboard input delay is much more noticeable than a controller, at least for me. I don't notice the input delay in this game, but I did notice it in that game. And I noticed the input delay in this game if I use a mouse and keyboard. I don't use mouse and keyboard because I'm not an insane person. I mean, you see in this video I'm playing Charge Blade. I'm not using mouse and keyboard. I'm playing Charge Blade. But yeah, you're getting beaten by Koei Tecmo here, Capcom. Fucking Koei Tecmo. The guys that are making, like, every spin-off game known to man. They, like, I don't... It's just sad. It's just sad. It's like watching the smart kid get beaten by the bully. Not, like, physically, but, like, in a math test. You're like, how is this happening? What the fuck happened? I have a few things on my list here that I want to go over. Oh, and this game has a ton of streamlining, but it also lacks quality of life at the same time. It has too much streamlining and too little streamlining in certain areas. Like, just to give you an example of what I mean. In the wish list for this game, you have... You put on a bunch of armor and stuff, but there's no, like, filtering. There's no way to, like, filter it by, like, oh, I want to see this armor set only first, or I want to see helmets, or I want to see chest piece. Like, there's no filtering this wish list. You can't filter it by, like, things that you have the materials for, things you don't. Like, there's no filtering. It's just raw, just a list of stuff. You can't filter it at all. And then there's also other things like, I mean, the menuing in this game, like, in general, it's just like, what the absolute fuck happened here? So many different buttons you have to press. Nothing is standardized whatsoever. But then also I think another thing is that there's too much streamlining and that there's, like, you know, I think having, like, no tracking or no, like, having the ability to, like, auto move to the monster was a terrible idea. Legitimately a terrible idea because it causes you to never engage with the environment. Capcom has made the most beautiful looking environment ever, and they said, what if we just didn't make the player engage with it ever? And in fact, what if we make it so that it's very difficult for you to find a reason to engage with the environment? We're going to put down these camps all over the place that let you teleport across the map. We're going to give you a bird that auto tracks the monster and will automatically move to where the monster is. Like, you have practically no reason in this game to stop and smell the roses and be like, damn, Capcom is really good at making environments. It's like they were scared to show it off. Like, man, what the hell, Capcom? Dragon's Dogma 2 is like the complete opposite of this game, where arguably you could maybe say that there's a little bit too little fast travel. I don't think there is, but you could make that argument. And this game is like the complete fucking opposite. There's way too much fast travel, way too many options to get around, way too fast. I mean, even Rise was better with this, and you had the ability to literally play Spider-Man. In that game, you still had to engage with the map way more than you did in this game. In this game, nobody knows where anything is. Nobody knows how to get around the map, because your bird is just like, GPS activated. Blah, 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 blah. Like, it's just... it's kind of sad, honestly. It feels like the game has been hollowed out a little bit in that aspect. And then there's other things, too, like field items, you know? Like, I don't think you should be getting items from your Sacred across the game while you're playing, because that's like, I get it, it's up for the open world, but like in the middle of a fight, I shouldn't be able to be like, I ran out of potions, and then go to the road to get potions. Like, you can already go to camps and get more potions, which already makes the game a lot easier, but it's okay, I think. I think having the bird like fucking DoorDash you potions is a little bit too much. I think also fast travel in this game needs to be disabled when you're fighting monsters, because fun fact in this game, fighting Jin Dahad, if you get hit by his Giga attack, you can fucking just leave. You can just fast travel. You don't need a Farcaster. It's not disabled. You can just run away. You can literally just leave. Don't like his attack? Don't. Just leave. Just fucking leave. He can't do anything about it. You just teleport to a camp, and he just says, alright, well, okay. I don't do that, because I find actually dodging the attack and engaging with the mechanic more enjoyable, but like, I don't blame anyone who does. Capcom shouldn't allow you to do that. It should be fucking disabled. Like, what the fuck, Capcom? Also, you get the Sacred too early, because the maps aren't even that big, really, to walk around in. They should have given you the Sacred, like, probably in the middle or end of high rank, because that would have forced you to, like, actually walk around the areas. And then I think it would have been nice, because if you get the Sacred in high rank, by that point you probably already know where the monsters are anyway, and you know how to get around, so having it auto-navigate for you wouldn't be as big of a deal, because you've already engaged with the environment, like in World, where after a while, tracks would just tell you where a monster was. That was fine because you already knew. Like the game was just kind of doing it a courtesy because you probably already knew where the monster was by that point because you already gotten the tracks so many times. Now I still don't like the track system in World, mostly because I find the world's environments are like labyrinthian as hell. I don't like the missions where you're literally doing nothing but gathering tracks, and I found it just to be a little bit repetitive. But I do think that there needs to be a middle ground between getting to the monster immediately and instantly, and there needs to be some kind of hunting aspect because it is called Monster Hunter. And I think the reason why you have a hunting aspect to the game is because the hunt aspect forces you to engage with the environment, learn the environment, look at the environment. And I think when you have an environment that's as good as the one in Monster Hunter Wilds, that's a good thing. That's having things that force you to stop and smell the roses are good, I think, and that should be something that is like enforced by the game, that the game does for you. So I'm gonna end it here. I think I don't really have anything else to say. I recorded a little bit of a rant early in the morning one day. So if the quality is worse, that's because it's literally me in the bathroom recording on my phone, not on my desk. So if the recording sounds a little bit worse, that's probably why. But yeah, I think that's mostly all I have to say right now that I didn't say in the video. Oh, and another thing too before I end off. This game's performance is so poor that for the first time ever, I had trouble recording a game because it was so taxing to my computer. I just couldn't play it and record at the same time. So what I actually had to do for this game is I had to set up a dual PC setup. I had to bring out my old capture card from like 2018 or some shit that I originally used for the Switch, and I was like, I think I can use this for a computer, and so I hooked it up to my laptop, and the laptop is what I use to record. The laptop has a 1650, which is more than enough to just record stuff on OBS. So I actually boosted or boomed, whatever you want to call it, the gameplay footage over to the laptop, where I used that to record off of the desktop, so that I wasn't straining the computer trying to do both at the same time. And then that was the way I actually got the footage for this. This is the first time I've ever had to do that. I might do it in the future because it's nice to not have to worry about, the extra taxing of recording something and playing something at the same time. But it is annoying to set up and deal with. It also means that I have to limit my refresh rate to 60 hertz. Otherwise, the capture card gets a bunch of ghosting because the capture card only records in 60 hertz. And then the monitor is 144 hertz, so you get a bunch of ghosting from the capture card. So I had to lower that, which feels a little bit weird after being used to 144 for so long. And it does make a difference. Honestly, even at 60 FPS, I notice the difference. It really is just, it reduces, I think, input delay so much, and it really does a lot of different things that makes it feel like way better. But yeah, that was interesting. Overall, Monster Hunter Wilds, you are the most fucked up 8 out of 10 game I've ever played. But yeah, enjoy my little rant. I'm going to end it here. And enjoy the rant. Alright, I'm going to talk a little bit about Monster Hunter Wilds, because this game is actually just an impressive mess, I think. And it's kind of shocking, how bad it really is. Wilds' whole thing is that it has, good gameplay. The problem is that, it has bad everything else. Everything else about this game is ass. Seriously. Visually, the game is so poorly optimized. So I have a 2060, which is the recommended spec of the graphics card that you need. I basically am the recommended specs. My CPU is above the 3700. It's a 5800X. I have 16 gigs of RAM, so I am basically the targeted recommended computer that they put in there. Except for my CPU is a little stronger, but otherwise, basically me. The game runs so poorly that in order for it to run at a stable frame rate, I have to have FrameGen on, and I have to have DLSS set to quality, which I think is the default medium settings. Except I turned off a few other things like volumetric fog and motion blur and all the other shitty things that every Japanese developer is everybody wants all of these turned on. No, nobody wants these things turned on. Please, for the love of God. I played a game recently that was a Japanese game, and it's a Square Enix game, and they had on the worst anti-aliasing I had ever seen in my entire life. They had motion blur on and they had TAA on, and it was really shitty TAA. So every time you moved the screen, it just looked like a giant smear. And the insulting thing was just oh, okay, so they just couldn't figure out how to do better anti-aliasing. No, you can edit the engine.ini file and fix the anti-aliasing, and people have done so because it's an Unreal 5 game. So they just, didn't care, I guess, or just thought that this was fine, or whatever. It took, 5 minutes to fix it. What the fuck, Square? You couldn't fix your shitty AA? You need to edit a text file, man. Come on. Anyway, side tangent. But this game looks terrible. It looks actually worse than World. It runs worse than World. Visually wise, it's not an upgrade enough from World to justify the insane requirements that this game has. Like, bruh, you want like quadruple the computing power, quadruple the CPU power. Like, it's insane. It's actually bonkers. And then it has 2 anti-DRMs because fuck you, I guess. What did you're a paying customer? Go fuck yourself. Pirate it next time, idiot. And then it has besides like the visual quality issues, the game looking like a smear and kind of being washed out at times, it's not stable. Like the game just does not function well. It's not like a stable game at all. It crashes all the time. I think it has a memory leak because I'm playing on Linux, and my game I have to have like ZRAM, which is basically like a if you're on Windows, the equivalent would kind of be like a page file. It's sort of a different, but the concept, the end result is the same in that it's trying to save RAM in some way. On Windows, you can set a page file, which basically means that it's going to use like some of your hard drive space as like slow RAM, as a way to make sure that your RAM doesn't fill up immediately, and then it has to activate, an out-of-memory killer. And I'm doing sort of something similar on Linux, except this sits on the RAM, and basically what it does is it compresses RAM files to be smaller, is my understanding. But it's a similar concept of, it's like a thing, it's a technique to avoid the RAM filling up. And it's a way to like use less RAM, basically. It's pretty good. And on Windows, and you can do the same thing with like a page file on Linux, where you can have swap that uses your hard drive space, but I didn't want to do that. But basically, yeah, that's what I had to do, because if I only ran, and again, I have 16 gigabytes. Game recommends 16 gigabytes. That's a lie, because if you have 16 gigabytes, at least for me on Linux, and maybe this is something to do with Wayland, I don't know. I doubt it though. But the game was just, because I've seen people on Windows who are reporting the same thing. The game just fills up my 16 gigs of RAM in like 10 minutes and then immediately crashes. So in order for it to not do that, I had to increase my ZRAM to 16 gigs so that it would stop filling up the RAM. And even then, it still crashes. It just takes like 4 or 5 hours, which is like, okay, that's acceptable. I can play for 4 hours, 5 hours before it crashes. But it's just inevitable. Like it's the Thanos of crashes. It does just crash eventually. It just takes some time, but it does still crash eventually. And it's last night it crashed after like 2 hours of not saving or something like that. For some reason, the game doesn't autosave that much, apparently. And I lost like an hour of like just collecting shit in the open world. So that was pretty annoying. And I also crafted a bunch of armor for layered armor, but I could just do that again. It was still annoying. It was really annoying. I went to bed after that. Yeah, it's just not stable. Like, the game is just like straight up like unstable as hell. You need some mods to get rid of some stutter. And also like in terms of like performance, this game is from my understanding, this game is so insanely intensive on like streaming textures in that you need an NVMe SSD for this game. A SATA SSD is simply too slow. Because I have all SATAs. I had all SATAs. I did not have an NVMe. Because originally when we built this computer, NVMEs were very expensive, so I did not get an NVMe. Now they're very cheap. And I didn't know my motherboard actually had an M.2 slot, but it does. So I was like, oh, I guess I should buy an NVMe to see if it plays this game on. Now, this was after I put in a new CPU, upgraded from the 1600X to the 1500X. It made a difference on every other game, besides Wilds, where it was exactly the fucking same. And I went, well, that doesn't make any sense. It's clearly working, because every other game runs fantastically well. Marvel Rivals runs better, no stuttering. I get like double the FPS now because I'm not CPU bottlenecked anymore. Helldivers 2 runs a lot smoother. Baldur's Gate 3 hits 60 FPS in the city on high settings now. No problem there. Like, something's not right, because clearly the CPU is working. The games are running better. I can feel them running better. And, so something is clearly not right here. Something is very wrong. And so I was, like, looking in. I used Nmon. It's like a tool on Linux to measure, like, disk usage. And I noticed that every time it would freeze, because the game would basically, what would happen is it would run fine, and then it would freeze for like 5 seconds, hard freeze. And then it would run fine, and it would freeze for hard. And I noticed every time it was doing this, the SSD's disk usage would spike to 100, and then when it dropped below 100, it would unfreeze. And so I was like, okay, I think I see what's going on here. So I got an NVMe SSD for like $30, $40. The first one blew away in the fucking wind, because it was a really windy day, and the Amazon deliverer, and this is not really their fault, because who thinks about, man, should I worry about the Amazon package fucking blowing away in the wind? Like, what Looney Tunes shit is that? Anyway, they put it on the porch and it just blew away, apparently. Or it was stolen. I doubt it was stolen, because we never had packages stolen here before, and it's like, it was a padded envelope. I feel like if you're going to steal something, it would be like, ooh, a big box, not like a little padded envelope, right? Like, what's that going to be? A little charm? Like a candle? Like, what?
You know what I mean? That would be a weird thing to steal. I guess somebody might, but again, why, like, especially after all this time, that's the thing someone steals? I don't know. I doubt it. That would be weird to steal. But yeah, it never got delivered. Like, they showed a picture, I went out, wasn't there, looked around, it wasn't there. It was a really windy day. I'm pretty sure it just got blown away. And again, that's not really, I'm not blaming the deliverer here. That's not really their fault. I should have checked as soon as I got home, and I waited a little bit, and who knows, it might have been there still, but when I was, whatever. I wasn't home when it was delivered, but I didn't check like right away, and I probably should have. But yeah, so then there was that, and then I had to order another one. That one came like the next day. Put that one in. Finally, it worked. I did try booting the game initially, and I realized I had to move my entire OS to the new NVMe. Otherwise, it was still like going through the old SSD to run the game, even if I moved it on the NVMe, and it was still stuttering. And finally, after reinstalling Nobara on the new NVMe, installing the game on the new NVMe, finally the stutters were fucking gone. Finally, and I also have RE framework working. I also upgraded the direct storage IO DLLs. I don't think that actually did anything. I think that's for like if you're trying to use like the GPU for direct storage, which I can't because the 2060 doesn't support that. So I don't know if that's a thing I can do, or if that's a thing that would really matter. I mean, for me, because the 2060 is older. But regardless, the stutters are finally gone. So this is the first game I've ever had in my entire like PC gaming lifetime where the bottleneck was like the storage device, not the CPU, not the RAM, not the GPU, not the operating system, not the RAM speed, not like temperatures. No, it was the fucking storage device. The storage device was too slow. What do you mean the storage device was too slow? Capcom, what are we doing here, man? What are we doing here? Every other game I have, except for Dragon's Dogma 2, which seemed to have the same problem, probably because it's also on the shitty RE engine. Every other game I had ran fine on my old SSDs and didn't have a problem. And this game just was like, no, that's too slow. No, you need to upgrade to a new SSD, you dummy. What do you do? What do you think this is? A charity show? Nah. Spend more money. Stupid. So yeah, anyway, I finally got rid of the stuttering, and now I can play the game. It still looks like an absolute smear. It still crashes every once in a while because it still fills up my RAM, even though I have the recommended amount of RAM. Yeah, sometimes the textures explode, and you just gotta play through it. Game is fucked, okay? This game is fucked in, like, every single fucking way possible. And I find more fuckery shit with it, like, every day. Like, oh, wow, there's 2 DRMs in this game? Oh, that's great. Oh, wow. Oh, there's a memory leak in the game. Oh, that's really cool. Wow. Oh, the direct storage IO is outdated. It needs to be updated. Oh, that's really cool, man. Wow. Oh, you mean the DLSS is also outdated? Wow, man, that's crazy. Wow, man. Whoa, wow. Like, it's like, how many things can you fuck up, Capcom? How can you keep doing this? How do you like? It's like a discovery. I'm like the Christopher Columbus of games being broken. Like, I'm discovering new bugs every day. Like, wow, it's so cool, man. And that's like we're 10 minutes in, and I'm still talking about performance, about all the things that are wrong with this game. We can talk about the UI. The UI in this game is atrocious, right? Hey, it's just like confusing to do anything in this game. It's like I'm playing a Paradox game. Like it just to like equip layered armor to equip layered armor. And I don't know if the game ever like specifically goes out of its way to explain how layered armor works. But to use layered armor, you have to like go into your tent. You have to go all the way to the icon on the right where it lets you change your appearance. You click change equipment appearance, and then you press Y on the armor's icon, and then it lets you select any high rank armors that you've made, or if you have like the free DLC that came with pre-ordering, if you're a sucker like me, and you can change your armor to the layered armor to one of those armors. But it's like, dude, this is like hidden, man. I had to. This is the real Forbidden Lands, bro. I had to search for this shit. I mean, I actually didn't. I had a friend that she told me how to get to the to equip the layered armor. But if she didn't tell me that, I would have had to fucking Google it because I had no idea. They don't ever explain this shit to you, as far as I'm aware. So yeah, and then there's just like another thing of like, oh, you want to save a monster as an investigation? You have to like the map is really weird. There's like a mini map. And then there's like a map that like overlays on your screen. It's transparent, and it's like, oh, that sounds really good, except you can't move while you have this map open. So I don't see the point. Like, I only want the detailed map then. And then there's the detailed map, and the detailed map, you have to like press X to go on a list on the right side. And once you get on this list, then you can select all the different monsters and you can do stuff with them. But it's also weird because like there's 2 tabs. There's one tab that shows like updated monsters, which is like new monsters that have arrived in the area, and then the second one shows all of the monsters, which to me is like, okay, why are there 2 tabs for this? If you already are going to have all the monsters in one tab, then just have one tab. Because if the updated monsters tab has just new monsters, then the current monsters tab will have the new monsters plus all the other ones. And if you want to show that they're new monsters, you could just have like a little exclamation icon next to them like you do for everything else in this fucking game. So why is there 2 tabs for this, Capcom? It feels weird and clunky. And I still don't really know what the third tab is for. So yeah, and then if you want to create an investigation on these monsters, you have to click the monster, then it says create quest. I don't know if this is a mistranslation, but that is terribly named because it is not actually creating a quest. What you're actually doing is you are actually go into another menu that is actually going to create a quest. So if you click create quest, it'll say begin field quest or something like that, which actually creates a quest, and underneath it'll say save investigation. Why is it called create quest when it doesn't actually create a quest? It leads you to the button that creates a quest, or you can save an investigation. So if you're like me and you're like, how do I save shit as investigation? You're like, oh, well, it's clearly not under the button that says create quest because I'm not making a quest, I'm saving an investigation. That would be weird if the button for saving an investigation was underneath the create quest button. And of course, that's exactly where it is because Capcom cannot do basic UI design anymore. Like holy shit, Capcom. What are we doing here, man? What happened? Oh man, they got a little bit better in some aspects. Like now you can like forge off of your wish list, and it's like cool. Okay, that only took like 10 years to implement, but great. I'm glad it's here. You know, I can't complain that much. I feel like sometimes it's confusing with the weapons now that some decos are like limited to weapons, and you obviously have like 2 weapons equipped. So like one weapon will have one deco, and the other will have another deco, and I feel like it's kind of hard to tell like which one you're viewing at a time. Like, oh, am I viewing the set of all my skills with my hammer or with my switch axe? And I'm not sure which I'm looking at sometimes, and the multiplayer UI is like, I don't know, man. Give me some of the shit Capcom is smoking, because there must be some fucking good shit for them to make that garbage. Like, holy hell. What are we doing here, Capcom? Like, I don't know. Like, you collected like your finest scientists and were like, all right, play world. You see how terrible this multiplayer is? We want it worse. Okay? Make it worse. Make it the worst shit, the most confusing shit, the most dog shit multiplayer system you have ever imagined in your entire life. Make it worse. Make it literally the worst thing ever. Make it terrible. Make it bad. Make it so bad. Make it awful. No one should be able to play with their friends, and if they do, they need a PhD to figure out how the system works. Okay, we want the worst shit ever. We want it to be worse than World, just like in every way. Make it worse. Make it so much worse. And they did. It's impressive. I still don't understand it, to be honest. You need to be like in a lobby to play people's quests, but then to like join the story quest, you have to be in a link party, and then like there's also like I think there's also like a guild system or something. I don't know, man. I don't know how you made it so much worse. It was not that bad in World, and it was actually good in Rise. And then it, like, I don't know, man, you did, like, 3 backflips backwards. Like, what the fuck? How did they do so much worse in this game? How did they fuck it up so fucking badly? What the hell happened, dude? I don't know. It's actually shocking how insanely bad it is. Yeah, I don't know. It's really bad. Then, like, so the UI is terrible, the multiplayer is terrible. The actual visuals and performance and stability is like shit. The game runs poorly. It is not stable. Full of bugs, visual bugs, full of crashes, yada yada yada. And the story. Oh my god, the story in this game is like, what the actual fuck? Capcom, never cook again. Okay, I need you to buy like Factor and let them cook the story next time. Okay, because holy shit, why? How did you make it so much worse than Rise and World? I thought we were going in a good direction in those games, because the characters were like not like super present, but they like actually did stuff and they helped you fight and Rise, and I really liked that. But like we just did, again, like 3 backflips backwards should be Capcom's new fucking MO with how often this game seems to take things that were done well in other games and make them like 10 million times worse. The story, I think people conflate a bad story with a story that purposefully is designed to stay out of your way, right? Like, if you look at, like, Dark Souls or something like that, this is a good example of, like, oh, it's a story that is perfectly staying out of your way so that you can just play the game and enjoy the gameplay. But if you want to, like, look into the story of Dark Souls, like, it's there. There's a lot of lore. There's a lot of characters. Like, there's stuff. There's substance there. And Monster Hunter has always been the same way. Like, maybe it's not as good as Dark Souls, but it was always designed in that way of, like, the story was always in the background, like, but there were characters, they were doing things, there was events happening, there is lore that you can look into. Wilds is built off of a lot of that lore. But it was never like, oh, you have to listen to this dialogue, you have to listen to this character speak, you have to watch this cutscene, you have to, like, it was never like that. World started doing that, Rise backed off a little bit, and then Wilds was like, let's do that shit again, but 5 million times worse. And they did. The characters in this game are all... Now, okay, I'm going to say this with a little bit of caveat. I hated the story so much, I skipped all the cutscenes. Like, past, like, the first 5 hours in the game, I pressed skip on every single cutscene. I pressed A, spam through every single dialogue, because I thought it was so fucking boring, it was so bad. And I liked the story in World, to some extent. I liked the story in Rise. Like, genuinely, I liked the story in Rise quite a bit, I would say. Like, Fiora, that's my fucking girl right there. Love Fiora. Lucica, again, same thing. Like, I honestly love all of the characters in that game. Rise actually had a decent story, especially in Sunbreak, and then they, like, again, the 3 backflips should be Capcom's new MO with how fucking backwards they are sometimes. But yeah, and then there's the story forces these characters on you. They're written so much worse than they were in Rise and World, in my opinion. And then there's, like, Nata, who's just, like... And I've seen so many people say, oh, Nata, but he's realistic. He's going through trauma, yada, yada. And I'm like, you're right. That is a realistic depiction of a kid going through trauma. That doesn't make him a good character, okay? Realism does not make a good character, all right? This is not a non-fiction novel. This is a fictional story about hunting monsters, man. I don't care that Nata's character is realistic. He's still a boring character who's annoying as fuck. And a lot of his he's just unlikable. Like, he's just straight up unlikable. Like, he has no, like, unique skills that he offers to the group. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't, like, he grows, but, like, he's just not likable. There's just nothing there. There's nothing to like about this character. He just doesn't do anything enjoyable. Like, it's weird that we're bringing him on these, like, dangerous hunts. Like, I know he knows a lot about Arkfeld or whatever, but, like, couldn't we, like, I don't know, why are we bringing this little child into, like, death monsters that could easily kill him and all of us? Like, we shouldn't be doing this. It's responsible of the hunter, the handler. Nata is stupid for wanting to go on these missions in the first place. Like, it's just dumb. It's just dumb, man. It's just fucking stupid. And then there's the whole, like, authorization thing, which I've seen some people love, and I don't get it, because I think it sucks in this game, and it feels very odd, because you have moments in the game where the hunter is, like, clearly, you know, ready to, like, leap into battle, and then they have to, like, stop, and then they have to ask Alma, can I hunt this monster? And Alma's like, yes, of course. Alma never says no, by the way, which also makes this feel even more pointless, because if she never says no, then what's the point of having this whole authorization thing if she never says no? Like, there should have been at least one moment in the story where the hunter's, like, itching to hunt something, and then Alma's like, no, you're not allowed. But she never does that. She only does that if you hunt something before the story allows you to. And apparently even then, she's not like, oh, no, you can't do that because it's bad. She says, no, don't do that because the guild won't reward you, which isn't really, like, what you would expect. You know, you would expect, like, we're hunting things for ecological balance, so you would think if we're not allowed to hunt something, her reaction would be like, oh, no, don't hunt that. We don't know what kind of repercussions killing this monster could have on the ecosystem, so don't do that yet. But that's not what happens. Like, it's not at all what actually like conspires. We don't get that at all. She just says, nah, you won't be rewarded, so don't do it. And then besides that, it feels like weird that she's the one doing authorizations, because it feels like the hunter knows more about the monsters than she does. So it's like, why is she the one authorizing these hunts? Presumably, the reason that the handler would be authorizing hunts is because she knows more about the repercussions of these hunts and of what hunting these monsters will do than the hunter. But it seems like the hunter knows more than she does. So why does the hunter need to be authorized? Why isn't the hunter just allowed to just do their thing? Because it seems to me that they clearly know what they're doing already and they don't need a handler. It just seems strange. Like, what's the point here? I don't understand. Like, why do we need authorization from Ava? It results in some weird, like, weirdly paced story moments, but it also feels weird because it feels like having a boss, except you're, like, actually way more knowledgeable than them. It feels like, you know, you're like an engineer at NASA or something like that, and your boss has no idea how a rocket works, but you do. And you're like, this is like weird that you're my boss and not the other way around, but okay, That's what it feels like. It feels very strange that she's our boss. It's also weird that she's our boss anyway. The handler was never our boss, as far as I'm aware, in the previous game. So why is she our boss here? I don't know. I like her more, I guess, than the world handler, but like that's a low bar. The bar is practically in the ground. You have to dig for it. Like I don't know how you could make a more annoying character than the handler. Yeah, I don't know. The story is pretty abysmal. I found it to be really boring. The hand holding is it's like that meme of like, oh, I have an aurora borealis in my kitchen. May I see it? No. It's like that, except like, oh, I have a great open world. May I play it? 30 hours in, after you beat the story. Like, what the fuck, man? Why? Why can't I just... Why couldn't you just let the player free roam around the open world from the start? Let them discover all these villages and different areas completely on their own. It would have been so banger, but no, they had to have a shitty story mode that holds your fucking hand the whole way through. It's terrible. It's so terrible. It's so terrible. They did a worse job with this open world than Dragon's Dogma 2. How do you fucking do anything worse than Dragon's Dogma, okay? That is like the king of scuff. Dragon's Dogma was like the king of scuff. How do you do anything worse than Dragon's Dogma? Like how? How do you... You know what, actually, while I'm at it, Dragon's Dogma 2 had a better story, too. Again, how do you do that? How do you... Dragon's Dogma 2 at least had the decency to be like, yeah, we didn't cook with the writing. We know we didn't cook with the writing. Just fucking ignore it. Go kill, like, some goblins. Go kill an orc. Whatever, man. Go get some pawns that look like porn stars. Like, whatever you want to do, man. Who cares? We did not give a fuck about the story. You should not either. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Wilds is like, nah, man, we totally cooked. It's the best story ever. You got to experience every moment of it. You got to watch all the cutscenes. You got to talk to every character. Like, it's like, Capcom, why? Capcom, why? It's embarrassing. And the crazy thing about Wilds is that despite all of this, despite the performance problems, despite the shitty UI, the bad multiplayer, the bad story, I would still give this game like an 8 out of 10. I can't. It's so annoying because it's like having having a terrible partner is super toxic, but they have like the best fucking head or something like that, and you're like, man, this is the best partner I've ever been with because of this one thing. But it's true, man. Like, they know how to make good action gameplay. They still cooked. They still figured it out. They still have like new weapons, new moves for the weapons. Like the switch axe and the hammer are what I've been primarily playing. Like being able to switch between the weapons is super cool. The layered armor system is better than it was in the previous games. You don't have to craft like a separate armor, which is really nice, and you can toggle some of it on or off, which is really nice. Oh, and they made it so that now finally, female armor isn't garbage because you can just choose to wear the male armor, or you can also, this is where it's interesting. Capcom is definitely aware of mods, and they're also definitely taking inspiration from mods, because there was a mod for World that would take all of the clothing for females, and it would add like this sort of like undershirt texture under like over any skin showing, which is really good because a lot of the women's armor in that game is really bad. And you should have really weird gaps in like for thighs or like cleavage or like in the armpits or something like that, like really weird moments where it's just like, why is there not armor here, or some kind of fabric. So there was a mod that had like it took every armor piece and it would just add like an undercloth under all of those like missing parts. And they very clearly took inspiration from that because there's now a setting called like an undershirt setting or something like that literally just does that. So Capcom clearly is watching for mods, and they're taking inspiration from mods, despite the fact that they're probably going to try everything in their power to shut down mods for the rest of time. They are clearly taking inspiration from mods. Yeah, so that's really cool. Being able to equip male's armor is really cool because sometimes, you know what, the female armor just fucking sucks. In fact, I'd even say most of the time the female armor fucking sucks. Yeah, I mean, look at like Oda. This game has boob jiggle now. There's boob jiggle on the chainmail armor set now. There's boob jiggle on the Oda Garen armor set now, and they give you big like compare Oda Garen's set from World to this game. I don't know why, but the Oda Garen set for female in this game gives you big fucking naturals, and it kind of ruined the armor set for me because it looks really ridiculous. But yeah, the layered armor system is much better. You don't have to have separate materials for layered armor. You just craft, every high rank armor you craft is now layered armor, which is really nice. Yeah, I would still give this game like an 8 out of 10, despite the fact that everything about it fucking sucks, except for the combat. But man, the combat is so good. The armor sets are still great. The monster designs are still great. The gameplay is still great. When the game is not crashing, when it's not running at 30 FPS, when you're not being handheld through the story, exploring the areas for camps and stuff like that is great. They're fucking masters at creating environment. They showed this in Dragon's Dogma 2. They showed it in World. They showed it in Wilds. They showed it in Rise. Like, they're really good at creating cool environments that are, like, fun for you to explore, especially when it comes to Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter has always been really good at that. And they're still really good at it. They're still very good at it. All these environments are really fun to go through and explore. It's really fun to have the verticality of World and Rise, but without the labyrinthian areas of World, which was like, holy shit, I'm getting lost in the ancient forest after 300 hours. What the fuck? Yeah, it's kind of shocking, like, how much good gameplay can actually carry a game. Like, we're really seeing, like, Capcom was like, guys, how much do you think, like, what is the limit of, like, good gameplay being able to carry a game? Like, they're really testing that fucking limit. They're really seeing how far can you stretch that before people go, no, this game actually sucks ass. I'm sorry, Capcom, it sucks. But they are really stretching that, really seeing, like, how far can we take everything else and make everything else bad before people go, no, the gameplay cannot carry this pile of shit. They're really testing the waters in that, huh? But yeah, anyway, I think that's pretty much all I have to say. This game is a mess. It's a complete mess. I mean, it's such a fucking mess. It's visually ugly. It runs extremely poorly. It's not stable. It has so many issues. The UI is terrible. The multiplayer is terrible. The story is terrible. It's one of those games. It's like the One Piece of Monster Hunter. It literally is like 30 hours in. It really does get good. Like, I'm telling you, it's like, yes, 30 hours in. Once you're done with the story, maybe even less than that, probably more like 15. But it's like, once you're 15 hours in, I swear to you, it gets good, man. Once you 15 hours, give like 2 hours for the shaders to compile. Give like 2 hours to figure out how to get the game working. And then, like 8 hours of actual gameplay to finish the story. So maybe more like 25, for some more actual story time. But once you beat the story, the game gets so much better. You're allowed to just roam around the areas, search for pop-up camp areas, gather materials, like whatever. It's like, oh my god, it's so much better. It's so much better. It's such a relief. But yeah, that's I think that's all I have to say on this. Capcom, please don't abandon this game like you did with Dragon's Dogma 2. Please actually fix it. Dragon's Dogma 2 still runs like shit. So I have no idea how much faith I have, because it seems like the engine is just bad for these kind of games. So I really don't know if they can fix it. I really am hoping that because Wilds is so much bigger than Dragon's Dogma 2 that they will fix it. And who knows, maybe some of those fixes will get backported to Dragon's Dogma 2. That would be nice. Yeah, I would love to see this game get fixed. I would love to see it not require frame gen on my graphics card. I would love to see it not have a memory leak anymore. I would love to see it not have direct IO stutters where you need to upgrade the fucking DLLs manually. I would love to see de novo removed, because I'm sure that is also contributing to performance problems as well. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Peace.